Wow, we have less than a week to go, and I just got a text message from Lee Dundons calling for a big rally down in Orange County, California. They're looking at preparing for lockdowns. Now, we may recall it was less than 2 weeks ago when we got the text message about all the airplanes flying into two airports in Orange County, one at LAX, and also San Diego, flying troops in and not rerouting them to other locations. So we know that there's something that they're preparing for in that area. There's a lot we're going to dig into today. And again, mark on your calendar next Tuesday, Tuesday, November 8th. Make sure you go in person and make sure you encourage others to go with you. It's very, very important now more than ever that your opinion be cast. Okay, like I said, we've got really a lot to run down today as everything's being stirred up. First of all, I want to start with trucking news. There's a lot of conversation around the price per barrel of oil, which is set to go up around the 10th of November. Now, it's going to go up $30 a barrel. This isn't something last minute. This is something that's pre-negotiated. And as part of that pre-negotiation, we also learned that this administration had flown over to the location to ask for a grander release on barrels in order to help drive down prices to make it look better going into next week. And in fact, they came back with a middle finger and stated that, no, you know what, we're actually going to decrease by 1 million barrels per day. And then they came back and said, we don't like what you said, so now we're going down 2 million barrels per day. So we are really in a sinkhole, and we are facing another $30 a barrel increase starting immediately after we go and cast our opinion. But what plays into that? As I talk about, it's not just the gas prices. And here, this is from Fox News. Trucking and oil companies ramp up warnings. Trucking oil companies ramp up warnings on diesel shortage. And I've had many conversations about individuals about diesel shortage. And basically, what the pushback I get is, I don't use diesel. Most cars don't use diesel. People just aren't thinking this through. I know that you've thought this through, but I want to state this in case you need a clarification to share with somebody else. How do you think your gasoline gets to the gas pump? It's delivered there by a diesel truck. When without diesel, if somebody asks me, well, what happens? Nothing happens. Oh, then I won't worry about it. No, I mean literally nothing happens. When we don't have diesel, this country shuts down. No airplanes, no ships or supply chain movement. Even the trains rely on diesel. And then, of course, that last mile or that 3,000-mile journey, those semi trucks need diesel. So, literally, what happens when we don't have diesel? Nothing happens. This is a New York Times, and this was, let's see if we can grab this here, September 29th. So, we're looking at, a little over a month ago. Even as oil prices ease, US keeps tapping strategic reserve. Why are they doing this? They're draining us down. Without fuel, we have nothing. Without energy, we can't move. We go into complete control and lockdown. The administration's move has brought down oil prices. Some experts say continued withdrawals could test the nation's energy security. Now, again, I say, who is putting this out there? No, by drawing down the reserves, it has not driven down oil prices. There's been another number of other factors. Those reserves are put there for a reason, and our former president pulled them in at the lowest price possible to fill those up to the top. This administration didn't pull them down to drive down prices, because if that was the case, there would have been more permits for drilling. The pipeline Keystone would not have been locked down, and all those jobs swayed. There were a lot of opportunities for higher production. That's got cut off. They're just draining our reserves. Now, here we go again. This was 2 hours ago, Fox News, and watch out for Fox News. It's a dangerous one. It's still hiding a lot of data. But trucking and oil companies ramp up warnings on diesel shortage, saying we put ourselves in this situation. No, the trucking companies are not saying that they put themselves in this situation. In fact, trucking companies are literally fighting tooth and nail right now in states like California due to regulations that have put them out of business. You can be part of a corporation, but you can't be an independent driver in the state of California. Cannot run diesel fuel in semis in California any longer. What option do you have? Well, of course, an electric option. Those truck drivers drive day and night. They'll sometimes pull over on a side of the road, whether there's a rest stop or not, sleep for a few hours and get back on the road. When do you think they're going to charge that electric truck? This is absolute stupidity. The transportation industry is shouldering the burden of sky-high prices as suppliers blame supply chain shortages and red tape for impacting prices at the pump. But this administration has painted oil companies as a scapegoat. We really looked into that term scapegoat the other day. So wake up to the lies, help spread the truth, and let people know it's not a bad idea to prepare for what's coming, not only this week going into it, but after the red wave, there's going to be a massive backlash. So here we move into the reality. Diesel shortage update as prices skyrocket over fear supply could run out. Now this was 10/26, so we're looking at just a few days ago. This was on Newsweek. An acute shortage of diesel fuel in the US is threatening to keep inflation and heating bills high. They're driving you out of your home in the country throughout the winter as prices are expected to continue surging. Now, you might recall back in May, I got a bill for over $500 for electric costs. The thing is, I have solar panels and I pay between $5 and $8 a month on average for solar because I've got skylight, usually a moon out. I don't need lights through the night. And during the day, we don't need to turn on the lights. All we run are basic computers for our usage. No TVs, no, it, the refrigerator's about the only other thing that it's plugged in and runs. So we keep it very, very low and we rely on the solar panels. So why did I get a bill for over $500 in one? I was told that my city council during lockdowns gathered together and had the bright idea of selling my address to a third party generator of solar. And I said, by that, do you mean the sun? Well, they said because it happened more than 6 months ago, and in fact, it had happened almost a year and a half before that, we just weren't notified of the scam. There was nothing we could do. It's massive the level of scams that are going on. You can't duck it. And all I can say is going into this winter, from the warning we got in Texas during the snowstorm, fuel prices and energy prices were manipulated and skyrocketed. You can't control it. They don't give you a meter with the price tag on it. They just give you the bill afterwards. It's a very good idea to put on jackets this winter and deal with the fuel as best you can. If you can burn your own wood, if whatever you can do to stay off the grid to control the prices, because that backlash is going to be dangerous. So what else do we have here? U.S. diesel supplier warns businesses to prepare for shortages. That's right. If the trucks aren't running, the trains aren't running, if the barges aren't bringing in or ships aren't bringing in supplies, what is going to be available is going to cause prices to jump. Just basically supply and demand, in addition to paying for the higher fuel prices. Fuel supplier Mansfield Energy is taking steps to prepare for diesel shortage on the East Coast of the United States, issuing an advisory to businesses that rely on the fuel to plan rather than panic. It is what it is. This is rolling in, and we don't have a way to stop this until January. Now, I'm going to switch the conversation here. We were talking about fuel a little bit. What about control? The governments are moving forward in order to control everything, the fuel, the food, our freedom. In this case, there's a YouTube video that came out about a week ago, and it's grandma arrested for feeding people in need. That mayor decided it was illegal for anybody to feed the homeless. She got booked and had to go to court. It's actually an interesting video if you want to pull it up. It's happening around the country. Now, why is this such a big deal? As we see here, if you look at mayors meet in Argentina 40 climate conference as a general, or you just type in C40 World Mayor Summit 2022, you find out quite a bit of information. So what is it? The C40 World Mayors Summit is where mayors from around the world gather, and this year they're gathering in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The C40 Summit is will bring together mayors of global and regional cities alongside business leaders, philanthropists, campaigners, youth leaders, scientists, and residents to share bold ideas, showcase innovative solutions, and stand together to create a sustainable, prosperous, and equitable future. From those core keywords, can you think of the direction this is going? They aim to control even your food, your transportation. This is why electric cars are so important. You're on a tether. You can only go so far. This is really dangerous. Keep your eye on C40 and find out whether or not your mayor participated. Now, as we move here, we're going to look at, this looks like it's out of place here, strategic reserve. You know what, I did want to talk a little bit more about this, which is why it rounded back in here. This is something about from the New York Times. And when we talk about only 25 days left of fuel prices, that doesn't mean that from today there's 25 days left. They are replenishing it back in, but at a very low level. So as they take out a day, they're allowing just enough to pump to go in the back end. 25 days, as you know, is less than 1 month. And the day that they stop allowing fuel to replenish, or something accidentally happens, the countdown begins and they will cut fuel off completely. Seriously low diesel supplies threaten to worsen inflation, and by International Affairs, October 30th, 2022. And so you could read more on that if you want, but the reality is here. They're cutting us off. Now, I want to switch gears yet again here. I want to talk a little bit about the chip crisis, the semiconductors. There's an article here in the Taiwan, let's see if that next one will pull down. So the Taiwan newspaper was reporting that Biden may be a potential guest at the Arizona ceremony. What is connected to this? I'll pull this up here. Remember that huge CHIPS bill that was passed? Here's what's in the bipartisan semiconductor chip manufacturing package. This was August of 2022. We are facing a real chip shortage, and this is manufactured as well. If we step back, a significant amount of the chips are used in our computers, but also used in our vehicles. And when the manufacturing plants in the United States were forced to shut down due to cooties, then the car auto manufacturers put a stop on their request for the chips that they needed for the vehicles. It wasn't meant to be a long pause, but it was a short pause. Now they made other actions too. One of the actions is they terminated a lot of their union workers and brought in contract workers, which is why our cars today act like shit. Many cars, we can't get parts, they run down, and in 1 year, during cooties, my car went through 3 different transmissions over almost a year period because they couldn't get the parts, then they couldn't get the labor to properly fix it. It's absolutely insane what is being created. But in regards to the chips, once they're not used in one sector, then other sectors started to pick them up and grab those orders and move forward. And then the auto manufacturers could no longer grab the chips that they needed, which is why we went into an auto shortage. Well, there's only one place on the planet that creates a very specific microchip that we need for almost everything, and it happens to be in Taiwan. And as China continues to embrace Taiwan, as if we politely say it, that's part of why this CHIPS bill was created, to create semiconductor plants throughout the United States, one of which has been designed in Arizona, and that very same semiconductor company is moving a second headquarters into Arizona. That's why this is on the radar. Lot to watch there with who gets the money and how it's divided. Now this is another conversation I find interesting. It's stating that conservative accounts gained thousands of additional followers on Twitter in the 24 hours before the takeover. Now, a lot of individuals have reported that, in fact, their accounts on any of the social media sites have been randomly turned back on over the last year. They're not even notified it's on. Somebody else will let them know that, hey, your site's back up. But what's interesting here is there's been quite a bit of a backlash. And and what we're seeing is people stating like a tantrum that if such and say good, because we want to have an open public square and anybody's invited for free speech reasons under, as long as they're abiding by laws of safety, to participate at that town square. For several years now, we have been locked out. And maybe some of us haven't been locked out completely, but at the least we've been shadow banned. And shadow banning came around as just a notion until the Twitter emails leaked that I shared again yesterday as a reminder. This isn't an accident. Your voice is being suppressed. And not only is your voice being suppressed, but the other side is being escalated. Monitor this as we go forward and see who's jumping ship of the platform. Because honestly, their propaganda is done. We don't want them back. I wanted to talk a little bit here about how important your opinion is going to matter. Now, we have an individual who is a celebrity doctor who has helped people for years. Now, there's controversy on his methods, but he's a businessman. He's he's definitely in a leader role. He's employed hundreds, if not thousands of people, really somebody in society who stood out and decided to take a stand in one particular party for the truth and for values. And then we've got one individual who is hiding behind his health issues, which I might state probably caused by the medical industry at this point, but we can't cross that over for sure. But this one individual just doesn't have it together. His voting record in the past has been 0 to none. He shows up to very few of the meetings he's expected to be at. He doesn't have any sense of responsibility according to the documents and his attendance. And he wants to raise criminals over taxpayers. Oh, for who? He's definitely not on the side of making this country great again. And yet, as he's out there with incomplete speeches, ideas that are off the rail, you got a opponent who's well known that in himself would get more votes. And yet the poll from Fox News is saying that this person is actually winning by 1 point. The polls are there to slant you and discourage you. Make sure you have your own opinion and do your own research, because 1 week from yesterday is really going to make a huge, huge impact on this planet. Now, I want to bring up some other polls here. This came all the way back from 2020, and this was a CNN poll, final president debate. This was the opening of where I started. And, the poll numbers came in absolutely crazy. How do you have some guy hiding in his basement who can't have a coherent conversation, who wants to argue rather than state the facts, and he becomes the leader in the polls? And yet they not only said he did a leader, but he did a better job in the final debate. No, this isn't true. And we not only know it's a lie, but look at the core individuals that were at the desk at this particular media company 2 years ago, and look who still stands today. They lied so much that all their key players have been terminated. Now, Mr. Lemon says that he hasn't been downgraded, but they've hidden him in a corner till they can figure out another way around his contract. This is really serious, all the lies and deceit that shifted our country. Now, as we go back to the KJP conversation, that our border is secure, we just have a few things to work on. And you and I know that when we talk about a few things to work on, in our mind, we're thinking, let's shore it up. In their mind, they're thinking, yikes, it's slowing down. How can we make it? How can we improve passage? It's corruption. It's human trafficking. This president has become the largest human trafficker on this planet. So 2 hours ago on Fox News, Adam Shaw and Bill Mulligan reported Internal DHS, and again, Department of Homeland Security emails describe rough meeting between Mayorkas and Border Patrol agents. DHS officials described a tense January meeting. Again, this is January, and now we're in November, between Homeland Security, Mayorkas, as rough, according to newly unearthed emails, with agents telling Mayorkas the policies aren't working. These are the people on the border, the ones who are facing day in and day out risk to their life and risk to their families, because if they're at the border, they probably live somewhere close to the border, now their family's somewhere close to the border. And yet they were thrown out there like meat to wolves. The emails obtained, and again, under FOIA, we all have a right to these. They're just not being granted. The emails obtained by the Heritage Foundation Oversight Project and provided to Fox News show communication between DHS officials in the wake of the visit by Mayorkas to the morning muster of Border Patrol in Yuma, Arizona. Now, I will point out that our border czar still has not gone to the border. She went in the vicinity of the general location of a state who has a border, but she never went to the border. She didn't want to do it. Morning muster in Yuma was rough. Assistant Secretary of DHS Public Affairs said in the January 26 email, one agent in the front town had his back turned to Mayorkas the entire time to ask a question and then disrespect. You're not a leader. If that's the response you're getting, you're a dictator. So here we go into Washington Post. This is a little interesting as this story unravels. We could all have thrown a flag on the play initially. We knew the time of year it is. We know that we're going into midterms. We know that there's going to be a lot of scams and scandals. And in this case, you've got somebody in line for office, one of the most powerful people on the planet, trying to get sympathy. It's a big movie, a game, and they even messed that up. Now, we're not going to go too much in the detail here, but the point is stay aware, stay on your toes. If something doesn't seem right, it's not right. Don't buy into the bullshit as these next days roll out. Stay focused, understand your values, and give your opinion. But I want to point out one more thing on this before we move on. I thought there was one more. Yeah, there's one more. So this is the Washington Post article, if anybody wants to read it, which is very interesting because we know which side WAPO's on and who owns it. And they're stating the Capitol Police cameras caught the break-in at Pelosi home, but no one was watching. This is what you get when sloth is prioritized and productivity is punished. They created a world where if you abide by their rules and you don't think by for yourself, then you can have a job and you can be promoted. And if you question the narrative, then out the door you go with punishment or into the hole, as we've seen for an extremely sad amount of time. This is really serious what we're going into here. And I really hope that as we move forward, that we're able to decipher. And as Emily Oscar's The Atlantic article came out, no, we are not going to allow a pandemic amnesty. Now, our side doesn't stand and fight with our hands or fists or weapons, but we do use our words, and we are going to move forward in a manner in which the blue is wiped and this red wave moves forward in such a force that we can learn from this and never let this happen again. Never again lock down in your home with a mask on, deciding which family members can to sit at your table with you. Because remember, 10 at your table was not acceptable. You had to kick out family members. Remember, you couldn't walk outside, go for a hike, or even go to the ocean because that was dangerous, forbidden in California and in the county. You could get a $2,000 fine for that. You couldn't go to work because that was dangerous. You got to lock down all companies, but you could go to Walmart or Home Depot or any of these big box stores. And heaven forbid you were small business owners. That was the worst. Sayonara is what they said. So don't follow the polls. Follow your heart and your values. Over these next few days, we've got less than a week. Make sure you understand what's being presented. Don't be manipulated, misled, or fall into the propaganda. We can never again allow our schools to be closed. Never again allow our children to fall prey to the attacks of the propaganda of these government indoctrination camps. Take a stand. Be brave and stand up for not only your future, but the future of those to come. It's going to get very, very rough and bumpy over the next, let's say, 6 months. Because even though the opinions are cast in a little less than a week, the transition doesn't happen till January. There's going to be a light of fight back and arguing over the opinions between now and then, and it'll get rough. We're going into a food crisis, a fuel crisis, and a lot of people are out of work. We're going to see hunger, and we've got the highest taxes that we've seen in this country in decades. This is going to hit hard. This country will be brought to its knees. And yet I tell people, make sure you've created a tunnel for yourself. And I don't mean go dig a hole in your yard. I mean a tunnel where you can duck out when it gets rough. You can enjoy the foods that you need for safety, the safety of your family and your children, and come out the other side when the sun shines again. And we're very, very close. That sun will be shining by March, April of next year. It's not going to take long. We're almost to the end. But make sure that you educate yourself and educate those around you over this next week. It's very, very paramount. Once again, blessings to you and your family. Have a wonderful day.